All right, it looks like we're live. Hello, friends. Welcome to Perfect Practice. Today with me, I have a very special guest. We have Lisa Jackson who's joining us, and we have a lot of great things that we're going to be sharing today. But I want to kick off today by letting everyone know the elephant in the room. Lisa, if you would raise your hands for me. Yes, tell us what we see there. What are we seeing there?
3 weeks ago, I broke both of my wrists in a competitive tennis match, trying to backpedal for an overhead, and wasn't sure I was going to be able to make this podcast. 3 weeks ago, it took a week to get a surgeon to put steel plates in and screws, and to have surgery, which will be 2 weeks tomorrow. So very grateful to be here. Very grateful that I could actually, today was the first day I could put makeup on and do my hair. For a solid almost 2 weeks, I couldn't do anything. And sometimes we don't appreciate what we have until we lose it. All the little.
Yeah, I would say that we never appreciate what we truly have until we lose it, and so I'm grateful that we're able to connect today, and um, grateful that the healing process is taking place for you. And I'm sure you're healing on more levels than just the physical. What was maybe the biggest spiritual lesson you learned through this process?
I had just the day before created a presentation for two of my groups and my private clients on the importance of mindset and meditation and as far as healing. And one of the things in my presentation was when trauma hits or when you get a scary diagnosis, as I work with a lot of people with chronic illness, instead of saying what's wrong with me, instead of beating ourselves up, how could I have been so stupid? How could I, made this mistake? Instead of beating ourselves up and asking, why is this happening to me? To ask, why is this happening for me?
Mm.
And I'm sitting 6 hours in the ER waiting to see if I could get a surgeon to fix it or get, my wrist was at a 45-degree angle. It was not pretty. Thinking, why is this happening for me? And what is the message? And what do I need to do differently? And, every trauma has a gift. And the gift that we can fill this out. And I realized there's several things that I needed to do for myself. Number one, I've been feeling a little overwhelmed with my practice. There's, as you said, there's no lack of need for
Mm-hmm.
what we do. I needed to be able to ask for help, receive help, and learn to delegate because I wasn't doing anything for the next 2 weeks. And I was afraid it was even going to be longer than that. I'm feeling very fortunate. But, my presentation was about also meditation and the importance of meditation in the healing process and moving from the sympathetic overdrive, in our nervous system to the parasympathetic, from fight and flight to rest and repair. And so I really had to do a lot of soul searching, meditation, to help with the pain, and prayer. I was really afraid to go into surgery. I've never had anything this severe happen. And I think it's the body I always say the body follows the mind, and the mind follows the breath. And
Mm.
so breath work is another key tool and skill set that I know you're very familiar with, that I also teach to my clients. And so even, using breath work to get through the pain until this
Mm.
couple of hours later before they could, do the set me and give me medication and pain medication and whatnot. So looking back, there were a lot of pearls. And, for someone, I think women particularly want to do it all. We feel
Mm.
like we should be doing it all. And it's often hard to ask for help and to receive help. And I certainly was in a position to do that, and very, very grateful for friends and family and colleagues who really all came together. And one colleague even came down and stayed with me for 2 or 3 days while my husband was traveling the week after surgery to be my hands, so I could
Wow.
get a little bit of work done.
Yeah, I mean, lots to be grateful that for, right? People
Yeah.
that show up for you and the ability for you to be more reflective, right? Where we tend to be as entrepreneurs, go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's the universe's way or God's way or our body's way
Yeah.
of signaling to us, hey,
Yeah.
it's time to slow down. And when you're as you're sharing this, it reminds me of a time when I got a call coming back from Houston when my brother broke his foot.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually broke his tibia and his fibula in a he just landed on somebody's foot awkwardly playing basketball and it snapped.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an optometrist. So for him, he had to get a rod put into his leg and his business was growing. And it's easy to get into a funk when you can't move, right? Especially because of how important movement is to our emotional health.
Yes.
And so he was basically, trapped in a way with himself,
Mm-hmm.
which is the hardest place to be sometimes, right? Trapped in a room with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind can wander and it can go in so many different directions. And, thankfully you have tools that can keep your mind, on a singular focus and keep you moving in the right direction. But it forced him to delegate, forced him to learn how to operate his business without him physically being able to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and since then he's had tremendous growth. He's, catapulted his business in the right direction and systemized it. And it gave, being grounded in a way gave him the opportunity to be able to do that. Once, of course, the pain subsided and, all the discomforts and things had settled down, he was in a position to do that. So hopefully this is a very similar story for you. If we look forward into the future, 2 years from now, we might look back and be like, me breaking my wrist was like the best thing that ever happened to my business.
It's funny. One of my colleagues is a healer, and he was on vacation with his wife in Colorado, and he said, "I want to do a little energetic healing work on you before surgery." And he said, and I and he said, "Let's neutralize your fear." I said, "Yeah, I'm having a lot of fear about this. How do we do that?" He said, "Let's think of the worst case scenario that can happen to you, and then the best case scenario." And I
Mm.
said, "Well, the worst case scenario is I can never do yoga or tennis again in my mind." And he says, "Oh no, Lisa, the worst case scenario is you could get a really bad infection and they'd have to amputate your hands." Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. Gee, thanks. Thanks, Alan. But the best case scenario, and I was thinking about this, well, I can use this to become a better role model, to become more empathetic, to, I'm the bionic woman. I'll be back on the tennis court with, steel, steel wrists, even stronger and better able than before. And I think really learning compassion and empathy for ourselves first, so we can have it for each other, and patience. Patience is not something that's not a innate skill for me. I want everything done yesterday.
Well, I think you're like most people, including myself, right? How great would that be if things could be done yesterday? Looking at your bio, I noticed a few things that kind of jump out. One is that you're a grandmother. So I hear that's like that's even more rewarding than being a parent.
Oh yeah.
So my son's only 12, and I'm kind of putting the bug in his ear to have kids when you're young, so that we can experience that. So I'm sure there's lots to unpack there and all the lessons that they teach you. You're an entrepreneur, you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a functional medicine practitioner and health coach, and a yoga dance teacher, and you're a retired nurse. So pretty colorful background and rich experiences that you bring to the table. What I'd love to know is what inspired you to, do the work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, great question. So I did conventional nursing. I worked in med surg, cardiac care, step down ICU. I was a coordinator of a 28-day inpatient substance abuse program. I did utilization review. I ran a crisis center. I went through all of the areas of conventional medicine. And when managed care came in and realized that really it wasn't about building health. It was disease management. And that often what people had access to was all dependent on money and not always what's in the best case of the patient. And so I left healthcare. I retired. I said, I can't do this anymore. This is not, we've got the revolving door syndrome where we're just trying to patch them up and then they're coming back, or we're giving a pill for every ill. And, I am in my 60s now. And I should be, if I'm the average American, on 10 medications. And with my own personal story, I would be on 10 medications. I had an autoimmune disease. I had high blood pressure. I had high cholesterol. I was wearing bifocals at age 50. And so anyway, I left healthcare. I had another career and bringing innovative green solutions to the marketplace. I had a sales and business development and career. And around 50, I was trying to figure out, what do I want to be when I grow up? What really? And I was at a conference that I had sponsored, and one of the other sponsors was telling me that at age 50, he went back to law school because that was his passion. And I thought, what is my passion? A lot of my friends were getting really sick. They'd worked so hard all their life and then coming up with chronic illness, and that I knew were preventable. I've always been very much into diet and yoga, and I use a lot of these tools that I teach now. So I started studying integrative nutrition, and I thought, I'm going to think about my next transition. And then my 28-year-old daughter was diagnosed with cancer. And it was the same cancer that took my once then 19-year-old boyfriend 35 years earlier, and my mother-in-law, her grandmother, that I had diagnosed as a young nurse, took her to her chemo and took care of her while I was pregnant with my third child. And they wanted to give her the same chemotherapy that failed for two other people that I loved. And I just knew that I was thinking about how technology has changed in 35 years, 30 years, and yet we're still doing the same thing with conventional medicine. And my daughter was 5'10" and 110 pounds, married, living in Detroit. And my head was saying, oh, well, this is one of the more treatable cancers with conventional medicine. But my gut and my heart was saying, she's not going to survive chemo in the winter at 5'10" and 110 pounds. So if we're going to go to war on cancer, we need to get some armor. So I was in total fear mode, total overwhelm, as anybody with that diagnosis gets. And we had signed up for one program, and we were looking at CD-ROMs at the time. That's what the mode of communication was, and trying to listen. And I found an MD, certified nutritional specialist, and a naturopath in Arizona who spent an hour on the phone with me and then gave me one of his clients, his patients. Anyway, we went to Arizona for 3 months. And not only did my daughter get a clean PET scan, but my autoimmune disease started to go into remission. My eyesight improved so much that I ditched the bifocals that I had worn for a decade. I couldn't see to drive or to read. My hypertension went down, my cardiovascular disease, everything improved with really diet and lifestyle changes. And I thought, who knew? We didn't learn this in nursing school. You don't learn this in medical school. And so I was sold. I immediately signed up to get certified in applied functional medicine and functional diagnostic nutrition. And then I was asked to build a integrated wellness program for a large oncology group in the DC area. And it's just kind of evolved from there. And since then, so many loved ones, so my daughter has a clean PET scan. I wrote a book about her process. She relapsed, and then we had more treatment, and now she's been deemed cancer-free. But that wasn't the case for my son-in-law, her husband. Almost the week after she's diagnosed as cancer-free, he was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer. So it's a kind of a long story to say there's a huge need for us all to, I want to change the trajectory. That right now, 1 out of 2 people are destined to get cancer if we don't change what we're doing. And that's already happened in my family, that statistic. And I don't think it has to be that way. So I'm very passionate about helping people with prevention. And, a lot of my patients used to say, I want to just be like I was before I was diagnosed with cancer. And I say, no, you want to be better. You want to use this as a wake-up call. And what do I need to do differently? What is my self-loving, self-healing, self-repairing body trying to tell me that I need to change so that I don't have a terrain that is hospitable to the cancer cells? What can I do about it? And this isn't common knowledge. It's not common knowledge in medical school or nursing school, or you're not getting it from a conventional healthcare. So
what do maybe some of your old colleagues, who may still be in that system that you saw as beneficial, however, not serving in the way you want to serve people, what do they say to you about the work that you do?
Well, a lot of them have gone back to school. It's been inspiring to them. In fact, I'm probably going to bring on a nurse practitioner that's, as she says, I've been practicing dysfunctional medicine for 25 years. And, as you know, and what I like to preach, it's the simple solutions. Optimal health does not have to be complicated. We do have all these fancy functional medicine testing that we can get to the root cause of things, but simple dietary and lifestyle changes make massive difference in how we're going to experience our life and the quality of our life, no matter what we choose. And I'm saying I'm very grateful for conventional medicine. It's not like I'm against conventional medicine. I mean, I really needed it. And I was happy for the anesthesia, and I was happy for the pain medicine. But it's also able to minimize the pain medicine with lots of herbs and supplements to lower my inflammation and not be dependent on the side effects. The colleagues, I think a lot of women will say, who knew? I mean, I really, until I experienced this with my daughter, and everybody thinks they eat well. I thought I ate well too. Everybody thinks we have a good diet. And I used to teach you nutrition when I ran when I was coordinator of the Addiction Recovery Service, and I knew nothing about nutrition. I would read the Harvard Medical Review, and I would do our conventional wisdom, but I knew nothing about what I know now to like rebuild health. So
what are some things that maybe those common misconceptions that you had about nutrition many years ago that maybe some people still have today? What are some of those common misconceptions?
Yeah. Well, the fat makes you fat. I say fat doesn't make you fat. Sugar makes you fat. That cholesterol is bad. Cholesterol is so essential that your liver creates it no matter what is your diet, and that you need cholesterol for your sex and your stress hormones. And if you have no cholesterol, you're not going to have any libido, any sex drive, or any really a lower ability to deal with stress, which is something we all need, is stress resiliency. What are some others? Those are two of the biggest ones.
Okay. I think that, that myth around fat, and, the pendulum sometimes overswings. So I do know that we can overconsume fats, right? Especially for people who have leaky gut type issues, that can create some problems. Or, we won't get into the nitty gritty details, but I think it's really about the right amount of everything, and for the right amount of time. I think one of the things that happens is people aren't consistent enough over a long enough period of time to see the long-term benefits of the body and the cellular function and the metabolism and the sex hormones and all the things that they desire. It takes a bit of time, but certainly when you incorporate diet and lifestyle, we can accelerate that journey in the right direction. So what would you say are some commonly overlooked, simple to do lifestyle behaviors that people can implement?
Eat real food. I used to teach cooking classes for Living Social's Demo Kitchen in DC. And I would say this, and people would raise their hand and say, well, what does that mean? The fact that people don't even know what real, like Michael Pollan says, just eat food. Food that's, if it's made in a plant, if it comes from a plant, eat it. If it's made in a plant, don't. Foods that your great-great-grandparents would recognize as food. So we're so used to, as Mark Hyman says, the frankenfoods on the shelf, that a lot of the standard American diet is just full of fake food, really.
Mm. Food. And how about lifestyle? What lifestyle changes would you recommend, or that are often overlooked by people?
Yeah. Stress resiliency. How do we, we're not going to get rid of stress. Stress is good. There's eustress, there's good stress, but how do we manage that? And we have to get out of the constant fight or flight. And fight or flight can happen from, I'm worried about my job or my spouse or my relationship or mind, to I'm eating food that is causing food sensitivities that's causing a cortisol rush or a reaction in the body, to a bunch of overgrowth of potentially pathogenic bacteria in the gut. Stress is stress. So uncovering hidden stressors from eliminating some of the most common inflammatory foods to calm them down.
How about sleep? What do you have any tips for sleep? That this one comes up quite often for people that I train and coach.
Oh yeah. One thing I love is, which I'm not wearing right now, but I have a whole bunch of them here, are my blue blocking glasses for those of us that are on the computer screen all the time. Try and follow nature, the natural circadian rhythm. Create a ritual for yourself. We were designed when the sun goes down to sleep, and when the sun comes up. And it's why nurses that work the night shift or the evening shift all have trouble with obesity. Often, their whole circadian rhythm is off. So simple things like having an Epsom salt bath, getting that magnesium. I always say, if you have a spouse, do an Epsom salt bath, and then get a massage table and do hot oil massages. Just a really nice ritual with each other to settle down. Read a book. Have a red light, in your nightstand to mimic the sunset. After dinner, take a 15-minute walk, holding hands with your spouse, watching the sunset. There are supplements that can help. But don't eat. You don't want to be digesting your food when you're trying to sleep. So eat your meal 3 hours before bed. The sooner, from 10 to 2 is when your body is doing the cleanup phase, hopefully. So if you're used to going to bed at midnight, try and push it back to 11 or 10, 11:30, 11. And, if we can move that time to 10 to 6 to sleep. Make sure you've got adequate vitamin D. So many. so
no,
many.
those are
Simple
good. Yeah, lots of simple things that people can unpack there. So when someone comes to you, Lisa, how would you say they describe it as being different than some of the things they've done before?
We get to the root cause. We look at, I have over 300 questions to help with a root cause assessment form. And sometimes that's all we need sometimes to really uncover. healing opportunities for change to help. They're conventional practitioners, and I have one client who has 13 doctors and 13 different diagnoses, and none of them do what we do, is talk about sleep, diet, minimizing toxicity in the house. The same gentleman had a really serious mold exposure. Mold is a precursor to a lot of chronic diseases, so cleaning up the environment.
What are some signs of mold exposure? Because I hear more and more about mold these days, and I know that it's, of course, summer in most of North America right now. So, what are some regions of the country or the continent that seem to be more affected, if you're aware of that? And then also, what are some of the telltale signs that somebody may have mold exposure?
Well, I can tell you, I live outside of Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. was built on a swamp. All of the old government buildings are moldy. And I didn't realize this. I didn't realize how much mold was a trigger also for chronic disease until just experiencing this in my practice. And August is a big time with the heavy rains here. Texas, Houston, areas of the country that are really lots of rain and mold. I had 3 clients who were able to get off all their medications for different things, everything from anxiety to cardiovascular, for cardiac health. This one gentleman, all 3 of them had been on vacation, had come back in August, and I'm thinking, what's happening? What's happening here in the water? Well, they all 3 had, 2 had flooded basements, and one had been up to their home in Maine on an island that they had a hot water heater. It was totally black mold, So, coastal towns, a lot of water, anywhere that water can sit. I think it's a major problem for a lot of the country, and one of those really big hidden symptoms. And with this gentleman, we were working on cleaning up his gut. Another telltale sign is if we're using just like some antimicrobial herbs, when you kill mold inside, mold's only defense is to multiply. So the symptoms are much worse. So, one dose, a small dose of an antimicrobial herb, and he's like flatlined. This is not common. This is a red flag when something that should be, that the body should be able to take care of. So with mold, when they get really sick for little mild things, it can be a symptom. And we can test for mycotoxins, which I often do when I suspect it. But the treatment then has to be kind of low and slow because, and can be very individualized. I think these are the things that are missing. From coming from a conventional medicine background, we want the protocol for everything. We want, here's the diagnosis, here's the pill and the fix. And so the protocols have to be personalized sometimes, depending on the individual.
Okay. What are some other things that you find that may be overlooked? So mold is one of them. Stress, nobody really talks much about, right? We do lip service, right? But not we, I shouldn't say we, but many people might go to the doctor and they say, oh, it's your stress, but then they just kind of shrug it off. Mold is another one. What are some other, uncommon things that show up in your clients?
Heavy metals, radon exposure, things that are invisible that are not even aware of. There's so many toxins, the off-gassing from new furniture and new cars. Some of us genetically need a little extra support to detoxify. We live in a toxic environment. In fact, when I got my own testing done with my daughter, I was off the charts for lead and mercury. Off the charts. And I had an office in New York City prior to that I would eat sushi for, traveling to New York all the time. I'd have sushi for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tuna every day. I'd had my amalgams unsafely removed. And I think a combination of that. And then when you get older, going through menopause, the estrogen drops, and the lead that you're exposed to can suddenly leach out too. So heavy metals is a common, and all the time, glyphosate. In fact, I have been eating organic now for over a decade, and I just had my glyphosate checked, and I was 3 times the upper reference range. I mean, if I have a high glyphosate, everybody, so does everybody else. I don't even test for it anymore. It's just like, okay, what can we do to help you, your body rid itself of these toxins?
Yeah, I think that's a big one too, and it can affect different people in different ways. So some people are better at clearing out these toxins genetically, as you mentioned, than others. So even though you might test a family, and even though they eat the same food, they may have varying levels of persistent glyphosate in their urine, I guess, is where you're collecting it. So yeah, kind of fascinating, right? Do you live near a golf course or anything like that? Do you think it's something like that?
Yes, and I have a lot of golfers as clients. So I have them take collagen and glycine powder. Let's just have glycine powder in a tea before bedtime, so to help detoxify from that. Yeah.
Okay, so that could potentially explain it, right? So it may not be dietary sources; it could be environmental sources that are contributing to it.
Yeah, for sure. And when I walk my dogs, you can smell the pesticides that neighbors are spraying on their lawns. I try and go to the forest or the woods because I don't want my dogs. Our animals are now getting the same diseases that we're getting that we didn't have that decades ago, and one thing is, being as old as I am and having a 40 plus year history, is we had a handful of autoimmune diseases in 1979. Now we have well over 100 and growing. So what's changed? Our genetics have not changed, but our diet and our lifestyle and the amount of toxins, water. I really always, I have relationships with air and water that I like to share with people to help them clean up their simple things. We tell everybody to drink half your body weight in ounces of water, right, to help with detoxification. But that water better be free.
Yeah. Do you recommend like filtered water, reverse osmosis, distilled? What's your recommendation there?
Yeah. So there's pros and cons to all of them. I have everybody go to ewg.org/tapwater and put in your zip code, and it will tell you what's in it. And remember that movie, Aaron Brockovich?
Yep.
Hexavalent chromium. It's in a lot of our public water, drinking water still. And I live in a very nice area outside of DC, and I was shocked at the levels in our tap water. So tap water, no tap water. And your filter in your refrigerator is no good either. So you really want to see what's in it and then what needs to be filtered out. I like two options. I like reverse osmosis because it filters out the most things, and then you can add minerals to it, and that's actually what I choose to do. Or like I for years I got Mountain Valley spring water in the big glass containers because it is mineral rich, and it seems to be from kind of the deepest areas in the Ozarks in the U.S. I don't like bottled water and plastics. The plastics, especially sitting in the car. I do give my clients glass or stainless steel water bottles, as a reminder to drink water and to find a way to have really clean, purified water.
All right. So I know I'm on the right track because we use RO and we remineralize it. However, lately I've been hearing a lot of buzz about distilled water. And I know there is this could be a debate where we can go back and forth for days on what's the best water, but definitely tap water is out. Bottled water is because of the plastics and the leaching chemicals into the water, that's a big no. And so I think if we're giving a recommendation, RO with remineralization or distilled water, and distilled water is just plain water, so that might probably needs to be remineralized as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So you've given us a lot to think about, lots of nuggets, and I love how passionate you are about what you do. Before we wrap up, what I'd love to know is what's a piece of business advice or practice advice that you wish you had received 5 years ago?
Well, I think one of the best advice that I actually got from you, as I was, always worried about, as you're an entrepreneur in a business, growing the business, how you grow the business, is that there's no lack of need for what we have. So to just decide, who do you want to serve? How do you want to serve them? And how to create your business so that your business is around your life, or reflective around your life, instead of your life around the business. I was always in a pretty competitive role in business, and often we feel like stress is a badge of honor. That the busier we are, the more stressed we are, the better. And this is a really big cultural myth. That no, and you also said being busy and having a waiting list is just a sign of inefficiency, of just being inefficient. It's not a badge of honor. And a stressed out health coach is really not any good. Anyone, nor a stressed out doctor. If your doctor doesn't look like the healthiest guy in the room, you might want to think about getting another doctor, in my opinion.
Yeah, or at least isn't trying, right? Because we're all, as you would say yourself too, we're all works in progress.
Oh yeah.
And it's really, it's more about what we do than what we know, because knowing and not doing is actually worse than not knowing at all.
Yeah.
Because when you don't know, you can't do anything about it. But when you know and you don't do something about it, that's a whole different story. So yeah, if your doctor, practitioner, your coach doesn't embody what they're trying to offer to you, then it's a tough sell. And when you told me you were 60, I almost fell off my chair. I'm like, wow, like that in and of itself is you're a walking billboard of what you do. So congratulations on all the insights that you received from this recent injury. Congratulations on the growth that I know is taking place in your bones and in your wrists, but also in your personal life and your business. And I'm super thrilled to see what this breakthrough helps you break through over the next few weeks. Do you have any aspirations or plans or any ideas that have boiled to the surface with this recent time to reflect that you've had?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Again, when you're so busy with a private practice and working in the business, it's hard to work on the business. And it's been hard for me to even implement some of your suggestions and advice. And I have my Living Younger, Longer metabolic reset program. I have not taken the time to put it out there and to invite people to join. And people are always asking me, what's my secret? Because I am feeling and looking better today than I was 20 years ago. And it is totally what we teach. Why? And if I can do this, so can anybody else. So I am, I had been dragging my feet about doing social media. And in fact, I put some really scary looking videos of me with my casts on social media. Not sure why I chose that time to start it, but I'm going to be really seeing if I can help more people in a group setting rather than the individual. And I think that's a win-win, because one thing we have learned from the last couple of years is the importance of community. And podcasts like this, that we're not alone, that we all struggle with the same issues, and the importance of community and healing. So I really want to create more of more groups, more of a community to help one another. That I used to run a lot of groups, and they're so powerful. They're so powerful. So I'm really looking forward to moving more of my one-on-ones into group.
Amazing. Well, this is the time to do it, right? And it's great that you're overcoming the adversity in such a positive light. Lisa, where can people get a hold of you? Where can they learn more about the work that you're doing?
So my website is Carpe Diem, which means seize the day in Latin. CARP is in Paul, E is in Edward, D is in dog, IEM, wellness, carpediemwellness.org, O-R-G.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. And once again, thank you for joining me today. And so grateful for this opportunity to connect with you and lean into your message a little bit more. And here's to your continued growth and success.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor.